Hi, and welcome to ThinqTanq, where our diverse leaders handle your diverse challenges. Today, we're going to be looking at how we are handling our anger. I'm Ray P. Ferrer, head diva in charge at Ray Coach LLC. I'm thrilled today to be welcoming today's stylish and brilliant ThinqTanqers. Let's hear, who are you, where are you calling in from, and what's one thing giving you juice today?
Thanks for having me, Ray. I am Kelly Macias. I am calling in from Washington, D.C., and I am an equity, justice, and inclusion consultant, as well as a freelance writer. And what's giving me juice today? I've been tapping into my creativity lately, which looks like a lot of collaging, a lot of cutting and pasting and playing and doing things that I used to do when I was 13. So that's what's giving me juice today.
Hey, Ray, so happy to be here. My name is Misha Mosley. I am the director of the Black Teacher Project and a stand-up comedian. I'm zooming in from Oakland, California, and what's giving me juice today is a morning workout that I had that I'm feeling strong and juiced.
Yay! And I am here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina this morning, and I'm juiced today about the fact that the trees are starting to bloom. So we're going to start to see the wonderful North Carolina green. That reminds me of Ireland. They're remarkably similar. So I'm thrilled to see that level of green here around where we live. Now, today's challenge isn't sent in by any one person. So we're going to do something a little different this time. I'm noticing my leadership coaching clients are raising this issue widely and in different ways. And it's something that I'm feeling as well. So as leaders of color, as LGBTQ leaders, we're carrying a lot of anger. There can be anger about murders and racist attacks that are captured on video, the disproportionate impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on ourselves, our families, our communities, the political zeitgeist, things being said about us in public forums. Need I go on? There's a lot of stuff that can be raising our level of anger. ThinqTanqers, let's put our expertise to work as we explore how this anger is showing up and what we're doing with it. Let's have a conversation about anger. So I'm just going to ask and open it up to whoever wants to speak first. What are you feeling anger about now?
For me, I think a better question might be, what am I not feeling angry about? There's so much to be angry about, right? We're in this, situation where Black and brown people are disproportionately dying from a pandemic that was mishandled. We're finding that because of that, women and girls in particular have been set back generations. I'm angry that spring hasn't come fast enough in my part of the country because I want to be outside. I'm tired of being shut inside. So I'm angry about a lot of different things at this particular moment.
I would say, I ditto. There's so much in our political sphere, and I think also in my field in education, watching schools reopen and folks really pay attention to content that students didn't cram into their heads, but no plan for the emotional needs of students, and not really thinking about this next generation of adults who have just had this very intense experience in their upbringing. And so I get really angry when I see us continue to think of young people as just receptacles for information, as opposed to really understanding them as human beings.
And just paying attention to the whole person in all the situations that you're describing, Misha and Kelly both, right?
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. And
for me, I'm noticing that I'm on a hair trigger with my anger at this point because of the buildup. It's been 4+ years of the public forum, including voices that used to be marginalized, or, voices of hate, people wanting people like me dead or gone, people just wanting my voice not to be here and your voices not to be here, And that's not just true in the US, So it's true around the world where this sort of horridness has become something that can be talked about in public. When I'm at my worst, I'll start on that one. When I'm at my worst, I'm I find myself not having a lot of patience. My patience is kind of gone, and my grace disappears. And I'm just noticing that at my worst. How is this anger affecting your behavior?
So I'm going to say the thing that you're probably not supposed to say, but it's true for me, that when I'm at my worst, I don't take care of myself. So that looks like way too much drinking bourbon, way too much overeating, especially salty stuff. I love French fries. I love potato chips. And not taking care of myself, not exercising, sort of not doing all those things that actually make me feel better. I kind of spend way too much time in the sort of self-soothing, but not things that are actually going to make me feel better in the long run.
You are not alone, Kelly. Misha, what about you?
Yeah. For me, when I'm angry, I get into a lot of negative self-talk. So why am I not Harriet Tubman? Why am I not freeing my people? I see all this stuff, right? I've been given, I have a good education. I've got a strong support system. So sometimes my anger around the external world, I turn inward. And then that anger turns to guilt around not doing enough, because we have this time on this earth and I want to do more, but then I'm also exhausted. And so it's just the anger gets mixed in with all of these other emotions, but I often direct it at myself.
And
so I felt my body actually respond to the feeling exhausted. And that's a thing that I experience too. And I also hear the clients that I work with, particularly women of color, talk about this sense of exhaustion. So I just wanted to normalize that a lot of us are feeling exhausted by the moment. And particularly when we're triggered by, things that make us angry, that we feel just completely wiped out.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly, you and I have had conversations on the side, off camera, about this from time to time. It's interesting how that feeling of exhaustion can do two things. One, it can make people more comfortable with us because they like a person of color who is exhausted. They don't like a person of color who's angry and energetic, right? So an exhausted and angry person is one thing. That's kind of okay, because then somebody who doesn't want us in the room can just ignore us or say, oh, you're tired, But on the other hand, the exhaustion also can mean that we don't have it for the microaggressions at a certain point. So like the things that you used to let fly before just are not going to be let fly.
Tell it.
I can tell you I have raged emailed, raged tweeted, done all sorts of things that I would probably not do when I'm not tired.
Yeah. Misha, what about you? I heard you there.
Yeah, I think I've listened to myself recount stories. So often it's not directed to the person. It's like, oh, people are like, how are you doing? And I'm like, let me tell you about this phone call I just had. Or and so I often have compassion for folks who are on their learning journey as an educator. But when I'm exhausted, I'm like, I don't understand. Do you have the internet? Why are you asking me these basic questions? Like, I don't have time for basic right now. Level up is 2021. So
time's up. Time's up. Time's up. Your education ended last year. Time's up. The other thing for me that comes up, and I'm imagining that it might come up for both of you, is the messages that we've had since we were young about what it means for us to be angry around other people, right? So if, as a Latino man, if I'm angry, I'm deemed a threat. If I were darker skinned, if I were of African descent, I'd really be a threat, right? So in my professional life, I've been told not to talk with my hands because it makes people feel uncomfortable or unsafe. Talking with my hands. And so forget about it if I'm talking and passionate or talking and angry about something, then people will start calling the cops on me if I speak, right? So the level of anger that we're allowed to have is low, if any, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm just wondering what messages are still living in your head around you expressing your anger.
I was actually journaling about this morning. So it's funny that you asked this question, because I think, for me in my family, there was a narrative about what it meant to be sort of respectable and what it meant to be a kind of classy Black woman. And part of that was around expressing my anger, expressing my feelings more generally, but particularly around anger, that was not a thing that was okay, really. And so behind closed doors, we may express anger, but out in the world, out in the professional setting, it's totally unnatural. And so that is stuff that lives in my head. I have to undo that, sort of break up with that narrative, right? Because especially in the kind of work I do, it's fueled by passion, it's fueled by a desire for change. And so that includes anger, right? We're not okay with the status quo. And so we want to move forward. And so anger is a natural emotion and part of that. But it's a real challenge because I definitely had those messages from home that it was not okay to publicly be angry.
I feel like I had almost like an inverse. So my mother is a very expressive woman. And so, and I tend to be more cerebral. And so she's like, aren't you angry? Like, let it out, let it out. And so I tend to, I'm a jokester, right? And so I like to make everybody feel comfortable and feel good. But what I've recognized is that when I'm angry, I have a sharp tongue. I didn't realize I had a sharp tongue until I started hurting some people's feelings. But because I'm always joking around, I don't realize that I'm saying this thing that's in my head. Like sometimes the improv just doesn't, the wires get crossed, and the thing I was just meant to think and not say, I say it in a joking tone, but it's not funny. And people know I mean exactly what I said. So the sort of just yell is the message I got, but it's not what I do. And so incorporating my anger into what I do sometimes means I don't realize when I'm expressing it.
As I listen to you, two things are occurring to me. One is I'm standing here smiling as you talk about your anger because I don't want to look angry on camera ever, right? I don't want anybody to ever see me not happy and smiling. ¿Qué carajo es este? And then on the other side, I'm remembering the mixed message of being first generation, where, first generation in the United States, we're here to make a difference and have a different life than the parents who came from other countries. But the way to do that is to be invisible, like be of service, show up, don't call attention to yourself. And that includes not being angry in public, right? So that level of presentability that you're both talking about, like how much of it is okay in public, right? And how much of it is hurting other people. It's part of being invisible as a first generation person for me. And just don't let them see you be anything but nice and pleasant and classy, like Kelly was saying, right? So be presentable, my father used to say. Now, this is a man who would rage at home, so that's the mixed message, right? So we had rage in the house regularly. So, it's like, so anger means you're a terrorist in your house, or anger means you're calling attention to the people, and then none of us move ahead. Okay, that was my early messages around anger. What do you wish for people? What's something we can share with our viewers around strategies that help you around anger?
The first thing that came to mind for me is if it's possible, get a therapist or get somebody to talk to. And I mean that sincerely. Like, I know that therapy or that sort of thing may not be accessible to everybody, but for me, that has been helpful. So being able to talk to someone about, my anger, being able to journal about it has been really useful. Knowing that it's okay for me to be angry. I kind of claim that title now. Like, when someone may jokingly say like, uh-oh, angry Black woman, I'm like, yeah, there's a lot to be angry about. Why aren't you angry? Right. So I'm okay with being angry, and I don't want it to keep me in a place where I'm stuck. I want to use it to fuel me forward. So, that also may mean channeling it into something else. Like, I mentioned earlier that I've been collaging. Not all of it is pretty. Some of it, like art, can be dark, right? But it's the expression of it. I think that's really important, to not let it get stuck in my body and in my heart. So those are some of the things that I'm doing.
Powerful. Thank you, Kelly. Misha, what about you?
I get it. I walk. I move. I was really feeling upset a couple weeks ago, and I just drove 10 minutes to the mountains, hills, whatever you want to call it, to the woods. And I just started walking, and I needed to physically get it out of my body. And I'm not this type of workout person where I'm, gonna go do a big cardio set. But I just walked and walked and walked. And then I was like, "Ooh, I'm tired. Okay. I got it out." So then I could come back. And then the other piece is in my work, normalizing the range of emotions. And so being like in meeting spaces that I hold, like when we check in and say, "How are you doing?" Allowing for all the feelings. So when someone says, "I'm sad" or "I'm angry," allowing silence to sit there. And I'm not trying to not make you angry, but I want to give it that space so that you still showed up to the meeting. We're still going to get some work done. But we can't just normalize fine. And so if anger is a natural emotion, and quite frankly, we should be angry, how, if we are engaged in social justice work, or no matter what work we're engaged in, how do we structurally hold space for those feelings? So for me, silence is that, like, I'm not trying to tell you, I'm not trying to fix it. Let's just like hold that.
One of the tools that I know works for a number of my colleagues is to provide a validation that does not counter or add you to the mix. So I hear you. I hear that. Not me too. Right? Or no, don't feel that. Nothing like that. But just like, I hear you. I hear that right now. And then that silence is so powerful. I also want to add one thing I've seen be useful for myself and other people is let anger out physically. So letting, one of my clients has a punching bag that he does kickboxing with. Other clients need a space, and sometimes that involves going someplace away from your house to shout and yell and let anger out as anger. Because sometimes for me, exercise doesn't do it. I haven't been angry yet. So I have to let being pissed off happen before I can work it off. So that's what I'll share. Well, that's all the time we have today, and we're probably going to have to do 48 more of these conversations about anger, given all that came up. But we heard a number of things. One is anger stems from many places right now, given all that is going on for us. Sometimes we direct the anger inside at ourselves, and that can come out in a number of ways, including not taking care of yourself or having a sharp tongue with others, turning it on yourself. And ways that we know work when we're at our best are talking with someone else who's knowledgeable and not going to collude with you, like a therapist or a counselor, clergy person, whoever's on your side with this is a good person to turn to. Talking, journaling, and normalizing that anger is okay. Lot to talk about. And I want to thank our think tankers today, Kelly, Misha. Let's talk again. Everybody else, if you have a topic that you'd like us to have at, send it to me at ray@raycoach.com, and we'll have at it. Queen and say, and we'll see you soon.